Namaskar, this is Dada Ranjitananda. Welcome to this webinar. So a few things about the webinar, the software, and how we are going to do. We are going to do in the following way. I'm going to do a presentation, and the presentation will have the slides, and you can also see on the webcam. And you can regulate the size of the slides or the webcam using the mouse. You can make one window bigger and the other one smaller as per your preference. How we'll communicate? You will see a window there in your screen that is written questions. So you can write your questions there. You can even write during the presentation. I may answer them immediately or I may answer them by the end of the presentation. So it depends. But you can write them during the presentation, so I already see which questions are there. I think that's all for now. And if you have also some technical problems, you can type and in the questions I can see. All right, so let's go to the presentation. The topic is Neo-Humanism, liberate the intellect. And you can see my name there, Dada Ranjitananda. As I explained, first we'll have the presentation and then a questions and answers session. And you should write your questions on the window that is written questions. Today I will not use the raise hands feature. I will just take written questions. Now, to understand okay, there is somebody saying I don't see the slides. Well, you have on your screen there will be two windows. One has the webcam and one the slides. And maybe you made one bigger and it's occupying the whole screen. You have to see how to adjust it. Okay, to understand Neo-Humanism, it's related to humans. Neo-Humanism, humanism related to humans. And we have to talk a little bit about human beings. Human beings are mainly a mental being, so our mind predominates. We have to talk a little bit how the mind works. Everything in this universe moves. Everything is moving. Nothing is stationary. Mind also moves, and we call it a psychic movement. There is a movement in our psychic realm, in our psychic sphere. One way that the mind moves is sentiment. How does sentiment work? I like something and I let my mind run after that. So I want it. I pursue it. That's a way of psychic movement. So sentiment makes the mind move. Another way that the mind moves is when I face a situation, instead of just following my sentiment, what I like, I think. I think deeper. Should I do this or not? Is it proper or is it not proper? That kind of psychic movement we call conscience or discernment. It's a bit different from sentiment. It's a second way how mind moves. And there is a third way, instinct. Instinct is more related to less developed creatures. Even though we human beings have instinct, most of the time we are not following the instinct, but let's say animals. Animals, they are following the instinct. They are hungry, they will see food, they will go in that direction. Humans, they will think, do I like that food or not? Is that food good for me or not? Is it safe to go there and get that food or not? So our mind moves in a different way. So let's say I have these three ways of psychic movement. The number one, this discernment or conscience. The number two, sentiment. Sentiment, we can compare it to rationality. There is more rationality in conscience and not in sentiment. And the third one, instinct. Now, as it moves in this way, let's say instinct to sentiment or discernment, in more developed creatures. Let's say that less developed creatures, instinct is dominating, a little bit more developed creature, sentiment, and the most developed creature, discernment. Now we are going to talk more about sentiments in this presentation. We are human beings. We are more psychic. So instinct does not predominate on us. Let's say an animal, fear instinct, or the instinct of self-preservation. These are very strong instincts, but in us, humans, we are thinking more. We are more in the psychic level. Sentiments, how do they work? I like something. The moment I like it, I want it, and I move towards it. And if I don't apply discernment or discrimination, then I'm following a risky path. It means that I can face terrible consequences. We have seen this in human society. We have seen leaders that fell because they got involved into some problem mainly due to a sentiment. If they had thought rationally, they wouldn't have done that action, but they followed sentiment and they did some action that later on they repent, but then it's late. We are going to analyze types of sentiments. This is one of the bases of this philosophy of Neo-Humanism, to understand the sentiments and to find ways how to overcome those sentiments and be able to apply the discernment or the conscience before taking various decisions. The first sentiment I'm going to bring here is this one, geo sentiment. Now this geo has a bit to do with territory, with a geographical location. So what is it? If it's a sentiment, it means the mind is flowing. So the mind is flowing towards what? Towards a territory or a geographical location. How does it work? The dominating sentiment in human beings is love. Now, if that love is limited to a geographical location, then we will call it geosentiment. Suppose I have a lot of love for my land. or say, let's say, my area. Okay, so that love for my area, I can call it a geo sentiment. That can work in different ways. If my love for my area, I work to develop my area, as long as it's going that way, it's not bad. The problem comes when I exclude others. It means I will do everything for my place in in a way that it is detrimental to other places. Then geosentiment becomes a problem because it doesn't let my love expand. So it keeps me in a kind of a confined mental space. Now, geosentiment can express in different ways. It could be geo-economic. What's an example of geo-economic? For example, in a certain area, I produce a certain raw material, but it's far from my country. So I will build an industry in my country. I will buy the raw material from the other country. So the country where the industry is located is more benefited. The raw material I will buy cheaply from another country, so that country will be less benefited. This is very much done by industrially developed countries. And it becomes imperialism or economic fascism. And it creates this situation in the world where we have industrially developed rich nations and poor nations which produce raw materials. So this is a kind of a geo-sentiment in the economic sphere. This geo-sentiment creates barriers, walls between human beings. I am from this area, you are from that area. Therefore, there is a separation between us. So that's like a division in this human society, creating disparity. That's why the propounder of Neo-Humanism, Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar, he says that geosentiment is a threat to the inner asset of humanity. What's the inner asset of humanity? Humanity is one, and we are moving together towards a certain goal. And this geosentiment is creating these barriers amongst human beings. Therefore, it threatens this very treasure of humanity. This is the definition here that the name is geosentiment. And where does it happen? It happens where people do not follow the path of rationality, that we limit our attention, our love to a geographical place. Therefore, it's a sentiment that doesn't have much value. We can say it's a cheap sentiment. It could be expressed in the social sphere, dividing human beings. It could be expressed in politics, a leader that does everything for his hometown but does not do anything about other places. It can grow, it can expand, can become a national sentiment, but in the end, it confines people in a closed frame of mind, and it breeds violence of one place, people from one place against people from another place. So creating wars, conflicts, everything because of territorial dispute. Now we have to think how to overcome this geo-sentiment. And how to overcome it? The first thing is to think more rationally. If we think more rationally, we can expand the mind in a way that it goes over this geo-sentiment. For example, some people think that a certain particular place is holy. Let's say a mountain, a river. So that place is holy and the rest is not. Now, if we think that God is everything, is infinite, He cannot be in one place and not in another one. Therefore, with a little bit rationality, this geo-sentiment could be overcome. Another way to overcome is through study, increasing the knowledge. If our knowledge is very limited, we are easily influenced by this geo-sentiment. But when our knowledge expands, for example, if we don't mind to create pollution in another country. Let's say once I heard that from Germany they were exporting the garbage to one of the East European countries. So they were taking all the garbage from Germany and bringing to that other country. So what is the result? Germany is clean, the other country is dirty. But what is the further consequence is that the earth is not so big, the distance between those countries is not so big. So eventually, the pollution in one country will spread to the other country. So that is not a very good solution. And that comes from that feeling that I'm here and I'm completely independent from the other people. So whatever I do to keep myself well, it doesn't matter if it disturbs other areas, I'm okay. But if we think a little bit more broadly, that would not help. So this is about geo-sentiment. It's a sentiment that is related to a geographical area. Now we go to another sentiment. This sentiment is called social sentiment. Now, what is this social sentiment? Social, it's related to people. So it's related to a group. This sentiment is more expanded than geo-sentiment because it can go beyond borders. It is related to people, and people can go to different areas of the globe. It embraces people who live in different areas, but is always limited to a group. So this social sentiment is more like a group of people sentiment. It can also express in the religious sphere. Let's say that I am from a certain religion and I help all the people of the same religion throughout the globe, but I will not help people from another religion. It can be socio-economic. I belong to economic class and I benefit the other people who are on my same class. It could be socio-political. I belong to a certain political party and I'm in alliance with the people from my same party and we do everything for each other in exclusion of anybody from another party. That includes giving jobs and favors and whatever. So all these sentiments, one thing that is common to them is this. There is some selfish interest involved. It's kind of for me or for my group. So that is the social sentiment. social relating to a group. Now this group can be a small group, can also be a big group. As you see, it could be just my family, but it could expand, let's say where there is a caste system, where it could include my whole community, or it could become a national sentiment. And the maximum, it could become an international sentiment. As, for example, the United Nations. The United Nations is international, but is still based on certain selfishness. Is each country protecting themselves in the international sphere. Now let me give you an example here. This is from today's headlines. Madam CEO, get me a coffee. That's the title. Basically, what they are saying in this article is that women managers are more helpful. They volunteer more for extra work, they do more and everything, but in the end, they are less appreciated and they get less payment. Now, I want to ask you a question. And the question is, in this kind of context, would you say which kind of sentiment is more dominant there in the context of this article? So I would like you to give your opinion. You have 4 choices. You can just click on one of the choices. And so basically the article is this, that women dedicate more, they give more, they volunteer more, but they get paid less. So you can do your voting there. I wait for a moment until most of you vote. I'm now 71%. I can wait a little bit longer. Okay, I think should be okay. Everybody voted. I will close it and share the results with you. So I got 100% said that this is social sentiment. Yes, it's a social sentiment in the sense that it's a group. Okay, what is the separation between the groups? Gender. So there is gender separation. So you group everybody in one gender, everybody in another gender, and you favor one against the other. Okay, so then it's social sentiment. Okay, that was not difficult. This social sentiment, it could be also in any sphere in the same way as the geosentiment. It could be in the social sphere, it could be in the economic sphere. One group is benefited while other groups are not benefited. Now, as I mentioned before, it could be on the political sphere. And what is the dominating thing here is that it is based on the particular interest of a group. So it favors a certain group. And that is the social sentiment. And this social sentiment, as we saw in the circle, it can start small with a small group, and then it can grow to a bigger group. So it starts with minimites and it grows to maximites. Maximites here, I will say, when it includes all humans and it becomes humanism. So this social sentiment is small, but it can grow. No, it is growing, becomes humanism. And we can say, yes, humanism is a great thing. We should implement humanism. But the question comes, does humanism provide all the answers? does it resolve the problem? Are we going to attain stability because of this humanism? There are two main problems with humanism. The first problem is, if it includes only humans, then our measure will be how much it benefits humans. And automatically it will create a conflict between humans and non-humans. So that is this kind of conflict, inter-creature conflict. The moment we allow this, that we are superior to the other creatures, we are opening a window to the idea that there is this more important being, less important being. It can easily transform into some human beings are more important than other human beings, because it comes from the same psychology that I'm more important than this other being. Then I can come to the point that this human here, is more important than that human, and that comes a conflict between humans, where one human can think I'm superior than the other human. So in this intra-human conflict, it can develop, for example, nowadays there is a lot of humanitarian help around the world. Some countries are helping others, giving this and that. But because there is this idea of selfishness, that I, human from this place, more developed than human from that place, in the end, this humanitarian help serves the interest of the one who is helping. And through that kind of humanitarian help, I can transmit my ideas, my values to the other culture. By doing that, I'm basically destroying the originality of that culture. And in the end, I'm trying to change things, but my way. So it's not a real change. And the development is that everything becomes not really humanism, but a kind of a fake humanism, because it is still based on selfishness. Now, I took this photo from CNN. It is the week in 35 photos. So let's say, what caused this situation? So what kind of sentiments are present there? Or here you can only choose one. So what sentiment would you say that, looking at this photo, it reminds us of what kind of sentiment? So I put you 5 choices there. Okay, I give a few moments more so more people can vote. Okay, I got, most of you have voted, but not all. So I close now and share. Okay, here we got 80% on humanism and 20% on Neo-Humanism. Let's analyze it. Humanism, maybe the idea here is that for human selfishness, the animal was killed. Now, on Neo-Humanism, the idea here is that this guy in the picture probably is not the one who killed the animal, because being illegal to kill these animals, and they wouldn't take the picture. So basically, this must be the picture from the people who came after, and basically they were supposed to protect these animals, but they failed. So now they are dealing with the consequences. So in that way, we can say this new humanism, because this person is basically there because he was caring for these animals. Okay, so in that way. Okay. Um, so that was about this picture. And moving ahead here, here is another picture. This is also from today's headlines. Basically, Obama made a statement where he talked about, he made a reference to the Crusades in his speech. And the idea was that he wanted to condemn the Islamic terrorists. He also wanted to note that people also committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. So that is what the article there is saying. You can see here this part. No? Now, in this context here, what would you say? Which sentiments are expressed there? So the article is criticizing Obama, or basically it's talking about what Obama speech, where he said a few words like that people also committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. So what kind of sentiments are involved there? I wait a little bit more until more people vote. I will give you a few moments more. If somebody didn't vote, just make an effort, choose one of them. And okay, all right, I will close now and let you see the results. So in this one, we are a little bit divided. Social sentiment 33%, geo and social sentiments 50%, and humanism 17%. As you see, one event or can involve many sentiments, because here he is making reference to the Crusades. The Crusades first was for a particular place. It was some event that happened for a particular place. We can say that is geo-sentiment involved. Second, it was groups of people, so it has social sentiment involved. And now maybe Obama is making the speech not to defend that, but to say that groups of people have done different things based on different sentiments. So he is maybe trying to reach to a more wide sentiment that, yeah, we are people, and because of certain sentiment, we did a certain thing. So I would say that all these sentiments are involved in this event here. So we cannot say that it's just one particular sentiment, but a combination of all these sentiments is the context of this article. But coming back to this social sentiment, the social sentiment can be minimized. It just maybe me or my family. It can go also to maximize, which is the all humans. The thing is that the difference here is in the radius of the sentiment, but not in the cause. The cause is usually the selfishness. And selfishness keeps the mind small. By keeping the mind small, we can say it is a mental disease. So what would be the problem with a mental disease? The mind wants to expand. That's the nature of the mind. We want to expand it. We don't want barriers holding our mind. These sentiments, based on a selfishness, they are creating boxes that limit the expansion of our mind. By doing that, it's creating disease. It means the mind is not at ease. Mind is at ease when it's expanding, expanding, expanding. When the expansion is blocked, then there is problem. And that's the thing with social sentiment. So how to overcome it? It's a little bit more difficult to overcome social sentiment than geosentiment. Geosentiment is a little bit smaller, therefore a little bit easier, but social sentiment is more difficult. It needs kind of a spiritual approach. Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar called it proto-spiritualistic mentality. Proto-spiritualistic mentality. Proto in the sense that we are not yet established in spiritual, but we are going towards that direction. What would I call spiritual? I would say that mental level is easier to understand. And spiritual level is when there are no barriers in the mental level. So the mental level expanded beyond the limited towards the infinite, towards the unlimited, then it crossed the threshold of mental and it went to the spiritual. So spiritual is related to the unlimited infinite. So here, the mind is moving towards the spiritual. So what is the idea here? Is that oneness. We are all one. So there is humans, non-humans, animate, inanimate. We are all one. We are all part of this infinite consciousness. So we are all expressions of this infinite consciousness. We are all related. With this kind of spiritual idea in mind comes this principle of social equality, that all beings are equal. Equal in the sense that I love my life. An animal also loves its life. A plant also loves its life. So all beings are here. We are all developing ourselves. Animals are here to develop themselves. Humans are here to develop themselves. Plants are here to develop themselves. So the whole system is one, and we are all together in this movement. So that is here, I'm not classifying that I'm more important, I'm less important. I'm thinking about all creatures. Of course, one creature survives on another one. Like, let's say humans, we are going to have to eat. What we eat, another creature. So what to do? Let's eat the creatures that are less developed, plants, and not the animals because they are more developed. So in that way, we keep a certain value system. We are for all beings. If we can develop this kind of mentality, only then we can overcome social sentiment. Because if we are comfortable, we can think, have the illusion that we have overcome social sentiment, we want to help everybody. But when there is a pressure, that's when the real sentiment comes out. I'll give just an example, human mentality. Once I was talking to one person I know in Italy, and he likes to go to all the operas, more famous, less famous. And he said that, Dada, I observed that when there is an opera and not so many people are there, all the people are very polite. When they are at the entrance, they say, oh, okay, you can go first. You came first, please, you go. But when it's crowded, those very famous operas that everybody wants to be in a good seat, then those same people who were very polite before, now they are fighting amongst themselves. They are elbowing each other. I'm here first. I'm the first. So that happens, for example, if we are in a country where the economy is going great, everything is good, there is no problem. The moment the economy starts going bad, people start thinking, oh, there are foreigners here. They have to go back. We have to get rid of these foreigners. They are taking our jobs. We are losing the jobs. Now social sentiment starts. It's us and them. Now we need a very strong spiritual base, not to be influenced by these sentiments. And to find solutions that will not be based on social sentiment, solutions that will be based on a more expanded sentiment. So this principle of social equality is that idea that we are all moving together and we are going to reach there together. Suppose you are waiting to board the plane. Now you will fight to go first before somebody else. But in the end, the plane will fly when everybody's on board and we will all reach together. Therefore, this principle of social equality is that idea that we are all on this life moving together to reach a common destination, and we are going to reach there together. Therefore, we have to help others. And there comes the idea of Neo-Humanism. Neo-Humanism, there is expansion. So it's like it is growing in all directions and is including all beings. And here it means also beings that are animate and inanimate. It means we are thinking about everything, about the environment, about whatever exists. And that is Neo-Humanism. Now, the idea here has to be spiritual. It has to be that idea of infinity, of going towards a higher goal. Only then we can really get established in humanism. Otherwise, the mind will always tend to divide. And even we may be, let's say, spiritualists, means we are practicing spirituality, we are thinking about spirituality, but we can still keep ideas in the mind that suppose I'm superior, I'm more important because I'm spiritual, so I'm more important than others. If these ideas are in the mind, it means that I didn't become Neo-Humanism. I may be, let's say, spiritual, but I'm not yet Neo-Humanism. Means spiritual, not fully realized, but moving towards spirituality. But if I don't adopt the new humanistic idea, my actions may not be so beneficial to the society. Even though I may be somebody thinking about spirituality and everything, but if I didn't adopt this new humanism as a base for my life, I still will not benefit so much the other people. So new humanism brings a balance between physical, psychic, and it is moving towards the spiritual. It helps me to move towards spiritual. So that humanism becomes universalism. Universalism in the sense that it includes the whole universe. The whole universe includes everything. Let's bring here another headlines. The Shiite militia drives back the Islamic State, but divides much of Iraq. Basically, the article is saying that this militia is succeeding in fighting this Islamic State, but they are forcing from their homes other people, including Sunni families. So they are Shiites. They are creating problem for the Sunnis. They are fighting the Islamic State. Now, how do you see this situation? Which sentiments are there? I'll wait a few moments, more people to vote. Okay, I think I got enough votes here. Let me see what. Okay, 100% here on geo and social sentiment. Yes, it could be both. Maybe a little bit predominating the social sentiment because basically same religion. You see how things get divided when social sentiment starts. We can say this religion and that religion, and then there is social sentiment, and then how that idea of social sentiment infects the people. Therefore, within the same religion, they start dividing this sect from that sect, this group from that group, and the thing gets more and more divided because social sentiment based on selfishness. So selfishness can go becoming less, more close, making people more selfish until everybody is thinking only about themselves. So, okay. So what are the obstacles for neo-humanism? One is the one I've been saying all the time, selfishness. Another one is dogmas. Dogmas are certain ideas that limit the mind. They are not logical things, not rational. Let me close here and bring back the. So we are talking about the obstacles to neo-humanism, so selfishness, and the other one, dogmas. These are ideas that limit the mind, that are not rational, but we believe or we accept them, and because of that, our mind we cannot become neo-humanist. And because of dogma, there have been lots of battles, wars, killings. In the end, how to get established in Neo-Humanism is expand love, remove selfishness, and expand love. Through, let's say, spiritual practices will help anything, social action, anything that helps us to engage more with other people, to feel closer to others. And the inspiration of Neo-Humanism is spirituality. Spirituality is the inspiration. The idea of oneness, the idea of connecting with the infinite, the idea of inclusion of everything. Reaching the end of the presentation here, just come to a summary, what we talked. I started with the mind and psychic movement, and I said there are three ways: sentiment, instinct, and discernment or discrimination. Then I talked about geosentiment and how to overcome geosentiment through study, through rationality. I said also that geosentiment can express in different spheres of life: religious, economic, political. The same about social sentiment, a sentiment that includes a group of people. Geosentiment includes a geographical area. And this social sentiment also can be in different spheres of human existence. To overcome it, social equality, feel oneness with everything. The maximize of social sentiment is humanism. Still, it excludes other creatures based on selfishness. The final solution is neo-humanism, based on the spiritual idea that everything is one. We are all moving towards the same goal, and it's a collective movement. That's the summary. Now I would like to invite some questions. You can type them there in the questions window, and I will do my best to answer them. Okay, let me see if there are any questions here. Okay, the first question here is not a question, it's a comment. And it's saying that usually there is a combination of all the sentiments and there is not only one sentiment. Well, yeah, it could be, it's an observation. Most of the time there is a combination of these different sentiments, especially in the world today that everything is so interconnected. We are kind of a little bit going over the geosentiment, but we can still see the expressions of geosentiment everywhere. And we can also see these expressions of social sentiment everywhere. And plus comes this humanism is also there. Neo-humanism, we still see very little of it. Yeah. Okay. So I don't see any other questions here. Okay, one more question here. How to start with overcoming the sentiments? Well, let's say we are spiritualists. So one thing is our own personal development. If we expand our mind, we start seeing the different sentiments and we start to understand how they are working. Now, one of the main problems is that we get involved with these sentiments on our day-to-day life. For example, suppose we are living in a certain neighborhood and then there is in that neighborhood moves in a family which is from a different, we could say, racial background or social status background, and their lifestyle is different from ours. And maybe their concept of cleanliness or noise is different. So automatically we are going to think, those people, because they are from that background, now they are moving here, now they are creating problem for me. So now this is affecting me personally. And even though I may think, oh, I want to be universal, everybody's is from, we are all moving together, we are all moving towards a goal, then I will have pressure and there will be difficulty how to do that. So that will take a lot of energy from me to fight that sentiment and to search solutions how I can solve that problem. So I would say that one way is through our own personal development. Another way is through social engagement. We have to be engaged socially. And another way also, we have to align with like-minded people so that our solutions can include more people and can have more mental strength in the society. Okay, let me see, there are some more questions here. How to promote Neo-Humanism in communities where necessities of life are limited due to poverty? Yeah, that's the point. If we go to a community and we start talking about Neo-Humanism, and they are feeling the problems of poverty, and they feel that that problem is being caused because of the way other people deal with them, so it will be difficult to make them Neo-Humanism. It's not a simple task here. And this task maybe cannot be done individually. Maybe me as an individual can do very little. Therefore, I may need to connect with more individuals. So a group of individuals here with a new humanistic idea will have more impact than one only individual. As long as I think me, one only individual, and I'm going to solve the problem, I'm going to be very limited. I cannot do much as an individual, and I will be caught in the whole problem. So now to connect with like-minded individuals so that we'll have more psychic strength and physical strength to tackle the problem, that's very important. So I think that it's not enough for us to, let's say, do our spiritual practice and think that, oh, I love everyone, I'm doing everything for everyone. But we also have to connect with people who have this kind of mind so that we can bring about new humanistic ideas with strength to the society. I think this is very important. So how do we know our own new humanism won't break down under extreme pressure? Yeah, that's the point here, that one is easy to break, but when you have many, then it's difficult to break. Now, when we are talking about neo-humanism, we are talking it in a context of society. In a context of society, it means that I am to create a new humanistic society, and a new humanistic society will be created by neo-humanistic individuals, Now I have to find those neo-humanistic individuals, bring together, so it will be very difficult to break. Otherwise, I'm alone. My psychic strength may be enough to counteract maybe 100 or 1,000, but then it will become 10,000, 100,000. My psychic strength will not be able to penetrate that 100,000 force. And therefore, I will end up withdrawing from the battle. Now, the point here is how to connect with more like-minded individuals so that a group of people with new humanistic ideas in mind can create an impact in the whole society. Okay, we are reaching the end of time here. I will go through one or two questions and then I will stop. Okay, so one question here. When you talked about geosentiment, you said the solution was rationality, but wouldn't that also require a spiritual base? Otherwise, the rational behavior could be guided by trying to perpetuate your dogma, a concept you mentioned at the end. If we think in a more broad way, yes. The thing is that as geosentiment is a little bit, let's say, smaller, applying a rational idea to it may help us to get rid of it. Like the example I gave, we think that a mountain is sacred, but when we study a little bit more, we think, wow, why that particular place? What is so particular about it? There is the whole planet. There are so many mountains, so why that particular one? So this brings the question that it doesn't make sense. So that's a kind of a little bit rational approach. And this rational approach, if it, of course, it can be influenced by a little bit in the selfishness, because I can think it benefits me. I don't have that spiritual idea that I should benefit everybody. So in the end, the real solution is the spirituality, the idea of spirituality, the idea of new humanism. So by working on new humanism, now the point is that the rationality doesn't work so much to overcome only the social sentiment, but it works a little bit to overcome the geo sentiment. Okay, I think I will stop here. It's 11:03, so that was the, I don't want to keep going here. So let's stop the question and answer here, and let's end the webinar. Okay, so thank you for participating, and namaskar. See you in the next webinar. All right, so this ends the session of the webinar. Now, let's start the discussion here on the feedback. First, I will let you see everybody who is attending. Now, okay, if you are familiar with the hand raise feature, there is a feature there that you click and it shows that you want to speak. So in that way, I'm opening now for the feedback. So you should be able to see who is there. And most of the people from the program committee, there is only one who is not, but I invite also to give feedback. So okay, so I see here that Vishala wants to speak. So I will unmute you, Vishala. You are unmuted. You
Oh,
can
okay.
speak.
I'm not able to see who's on it.
Oh, okay. Oh,
It doesn't matter, but
I think you don't see because, okay, I can tell you, but
it doesn't matter. That's all.
do
I
you
was just
have,
wondering if there was something that wasn't on. That's all.
okay, no, but it's, I want to also get feedback on the software. So you may have either a window in your browser, or you may have a kind of a control panel there.
Oh, I see now. Yes, I have a control panel and I see who's doing it.
Okay, so you have the attendees and you can see
Yep.
all the list. All right.
Yep, I see.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. So
Good.
anyway, in that way, people can click on the button to raise hand, so I know they want to speak, and then I unmute, then you can
Okay.
speak. So
So
do
why
you
don't I
have
give
any
my
feedback?
feedback?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't I give my feedback since I'm on?
Sure.
Okay, I thought the way the sort of style of what you showed and what you went through it and the different aspects was very good. I thought that the way you summarized at the end was done very well because it really brought me back to all the points that you made. I thought that was really good. I thought that trying to get a little bit of this interactive thing, which is an awkward software to kind of do to, like questions and answers, like to, give in the middle those little interactive things was good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, these are my wonderings. I'm wondering about how people take this now and this information, how one would take this information and kind of go with it in more of a co-creative way, kind of out from the seminar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that translates. Like this idea of how overcome geoseminism with study and rationality, I couldn't translate that to then like my life kind of, like
Yeah.
how to take it kind of out.
Right.
Also, this interaction, I was thinking from my perspective, this interaction the whole time on this inclusion-exclusion, which the work I've worked on is very much part of it, so I thought that was good. But it's like how we include and exclude in our own selves these things,
Mm-hmm.
Like this is sort of the philosophy, but my personal opinion is in order for me to become a more neo-humanistic person myself, I have to deal with who I'm excluding, and how I deal with that.
Right.
So that's just like where my mind was. I'm giving you that feedback.
You're right.
But it was
Right.
good to look at those two different things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my feedback.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
We can have, you can speak again later also. Okay, so I have here Arati. Arati, I'm going to unmute you. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because my headset's not behaving very well. So, okay, so I thought it was very clear. Actually, I liked it. It kept my attention. I liked the handwritten slides. I thought, they gave it I like the character of that as opposed to typed ones. You covered, I felt, almost all of the book, Liberation of Intellect, which was great. It's a good way to just get an introduction to that book without having to read it. I like that you included the news articles. I thought that gave it, trying to sort of bring it into real situations in the world. I have some comments on the content, just a few. Now, okay, first of all, if there were a way to reference previous slides, I don't know if the software will allow you, but I was imagining if there was along the bottom, like you could sort of flip back and see a previous slide, because I wanted to check something and I couldn't. And so that I'm mentioning that because of my next comment. I think you offered the choice in the multiple choices of neo-humanism before you put the term up.
Yeah, I did in one of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I couldn't flip back to see. So, I mean, all of us knew what neo-humanism was. It wasn't a problem for us. But I'm thinking if you're giving this to a group that never heard the word before, and
Right.
later, of course, you put up a slide. Neo-humanism was very clear. then let me see, what order do I want to say these in? The idea of all beings, I think it would be good to bring forward, maybe use the words somewhere about animate and inanimate, because Baba uses those.
Right.
Because then that extends also to the earth and the water and the rocks and sustainable living and all of that. So that's another whole aspect that you might want to mention, because this was mostly concentrated on people and animals, and not so much on plants and the rocks and water and the rest of the earth. So let's see. Also, I have a particular, I really like the term that Baba used, awakened conscience, and how you covered that, but you didn't actually use that word. And so, and then when you talked about conscience, I like that he uses the word, the concept of the way you get from rationality to applying conscience is when you weigh whether it's benevolent or not. And I personally had found his use of those words very helpful. So I don't know if you might want to incorporate those into your. I mean, you got all the ideas there. It was just not using that word awakened conscious or the word benevolent that I think might be nice. I hope I'm not talking too much.
I think it's okay.
Let me
We
see.
have an hour to go on this.
There was two other things. At the very beginning, when you talked about the very, very beginning, like your first two sentences, when you talked about humanism, I was thinking you might want to reference how humanism's been used historically, because in a sense, up until like at the Renaissance, when humanism was born, it's kind of like that's been like the big ideal, that people try for, and now Baba took that further and made it neo-humanism. So I don't know, when Manoranjana, Marcus Bussey, when all the kind of intellectuals talk about it, they always, kind of bring that in. So I don't know if you want to do that or not, but I just thought of that. And then the only other thing is just one pronunciation for, I believe it's maximitis and minimitis. So I think that's just those two words, I think, if you could. I think you said, I can't even remember how you said it. But
okay.
So that's my feedback. Thank you.
Good.
I enjoyed it very much. And
okay.
I think it's a great webinar.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
One thing, we have another resource there that can be used in this software is that when you speak, any of you speak, there is the option, let me see if I'm doing that. There is the option that you can also activate your, I'm not sure about this particular software. The training one is, but there is, I think there should be an option that you can activate your webcam. I'm not sure. If you see a place where you can click to activate the webcam, maybe we will also see the person who is talking also online. Now I'm not sure if this one has the one I'm using now, or if it's only the one we use for the National Committee.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I see. Another point is, when you've all finished speaking, you can click again on the raise hand button and then your hands go down. Yes. Okay, now I have here, okay, I have, oh, sorry, I muted you. Let me unmute you again. Yes, you were talking something.
Oh, I was saying I wasn't muted. Maybe could you please mute me?
Yes. Oh, you can also self-mute.
Oh.
There is a, should be
okay, I see it.
Yeah.
I can see it now.
Yes. Okay, so I'm muted, and now I have Anchala. Okay, let me unmute you. Yes, you can speak now.
I don't have a headset. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there was a lot that I liked, but to start with very basics, I'm not a very computer literate person compared to a lot of other people, and I found the whole process very easy to follow, even in the registration.
Okay.
I thought, oh, I won't be able to figure this out, but it was very straightforward. So I think that was good. Even getting on today, I basically could do it by myself, so that's pretty good. And I did like the informal way that we saw things on the screen. It made it less boring than typed. And I liked the interactive questions, and really appreciated that you found such relevant things just today. That was impressive. One comment about, I asked that last question that you answered.
Mm-hmm.
Just in that whole first part with the geo-sentiment,
Yes.
I felt like you were arguing it very logically, which for me, it was, I kept finding little nuances where I said, well, that's, I could argue against that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like when that was kind of the why I asked that question. So I don't know if there's another way to do it that doesn't seem like such a logical progression, because it's not foolproof at all.
Right.
And so if it was, the conceptualization wasn't trying to be so logical, my mind wouldn't have been going to, oh, but that's not quite perfectly logical. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Means you can say something using one logic, but somebody can argue using another logic.
Exactly, and I have this unfortunate, sometimes fortunate capacity to always think, well, I could also argue it the other way. So, and then I also have this inclination to edit things, which some people are aware of. And there was at least twice when you presented a sequence of things, and just the very first one was when you said sentiment, conscience, and intellect, and then when you I don't know if it was reviewing it or just
instinct.
I mean instinct. I'm
Means
sorry.
First I didn't follow the same order later.
Yes, right. It would be helpful. And there was one other time where that happened, where you didn't follow the same order, and it took my mind a minute to process that. So I think it would be helpful if you did that.
Yeah, well, I did that because I first wanted to bring the point of sentiment.
Yes.
And then I moved towards the point of conscience or discernment.
I realized that.
And then later on, I brought what was kind of the less related to human being, which is the instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I brought them, then I ordered them, putting like the less developed instinct and then sentiment and then the conscience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the thing is, I didn't want to start with the instinct. That's the point. I could start with the less developed, which would be the instinct, but I didn't want to start from that. And I could start from the conscience. I also didn't want. I wanted to start from the sentiment, because that is the main topic of the presentation. So that's why it comes in that way. So I don't know. Do you still think I should change it, or?
I'll
Because
have to think.
I means I could let's see, because the whole point of the presentation is the okay, here takes a little bit longer.
Well, you're talking about how the mind moves, and that's obviously a pretty complicated and circuitous thing.
Yeah, as how the mind moves. So I first wanted to bring sentiment. So sentiment is easy for people to understand, and they relate to it. And if I could bring instinct first, as the, how to say, mind moves in that way. So
Well,
that's
actually,
the choice.
when you were doing it, what I thought was I liked that order that you presented it, and then the second time you presented the sequence, you could just say, but we're going to focus on number 2.
Right. Okay, let me think a little bit on that.
Yeah. So my final comment is just that I think it pulled together very nicely in the end. It did feel like it was very complete. So yeah,
Okay.
very nice.
Okay. Another thing on the feedback, you can also analyze a little bit like the whole experience. Let's say this webinar, in the way it is, it should be for people who are fairly don't know much about Neo-Humanism, or people who are Margies and they heard about this Neo-Humanism, but they don't really have a kind of a concept. So as kind of an introduction to the topic and giving some idea of the topic. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's see if somebody else is here ready to speak. I have Raghuvir, so let me unmute you. Yes, okay.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
I appreciate very much the whole flow, I think, as other people have been saying, and I also like very much the style of the images that you present. The only real thing that would add something more for me, you gave some nice examples that were current toward the end, and earlier on you gave examples that were more general and vague. And I think you could have had more specific examples, like there was a point where you were talking about raw materials and industrial countries taking advantage of the locations where there were raw materials being extracted. And you also gave a general reference to the influence of war in regards to things like that. I think the more that there could be some real life examples rather than just general statements, it would make it a bit more powerful. And in that regard, too, depending on the audience, the more that you could pick up on local issues for whatever the group was that you were presenting to, would make it all that much more tangible to the group that you were presenting it to.
Right.
But I very much liked the way you organized it, and I think the concepts were presented clearly, and I think for the purposes that you've described, this is very good.
Right. One thing I wanted to ask, maybe other people can comment on that also, is I noticed, it's a kind of an impression I want to check with the audience, that when the people are in front of the computer with the screen, with the presentation and the webcam, and maybe they have a headset or they are in an environment that they are concentrating on the computer screen, I sometimes find people concentrate better than in a big class environment. Would other people agree with that? Like when you see a child in a video game, and they are really into it, into the screen, into the sound, and like this. So I'm not sure if maybe it's a good way of teaching theoretical aspects, because people concentrate for that half an hour or 40 minutes that the presentation is going on. Yeah. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead here. There is, okay, Vivek, you are on the spot. Yeah.
Well, in answer to your last question, I'm not fully agreed with. I think it depends on the quality of the webinar and the quality of the live presentation.
Oh, okay.
You know, and if you're an engaging speaker, I think you'll be engaging in either media.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a well put together presentation, people's minds will probably wander in either media.
Oh, okay.
You know, I've done some webinars that get just too detailed oriented, and yeah, I can concentrate, but I don't know. That's just my impression. Well, like everybody else, I liked the flow. I thought you had a good rate of speaking. Your projection was good. Your enunciation was good. I think your rate of speech was just right, so that the accent wasn't a problem at all. So I think those aspects were very clear. And of course, like everybody else, I like the way you put it together. It's been a while since I've read Liberation of an Intellect, but I don't remember the instinct, sentiment, discernment being in that book. Is that something you added to?
That I think is coming from maybe Neo-Humanism in a nutshell or something like that.
Okay, but it was nice to have that connection, which I hadn't made before. And then the way you scoped love, and then made humanism the maximum. The transition from social sentiment to humanism, as humanism being the limit of social sentiment. That was a nice touch. Like everybody else, I liked that you had current, very relevant slides for our questions, and that the questions started getting challenging at the end when you forced us to pick one sentiment. At first I was saying, well, that could be more than one thing, but then that came out in the different answers people were giving. So in the end, I kind of liked it, even though at first I was saying this is a little bit ambiguous. But I think the ambiguity you handled really well. I mean, it almost served to show how difficult it is. One of the things, in terms, following up on Raghavira's point, while logically explained the difference between humanism and neo-humanism, I didn't really see clear examples of what's humanism versus just a different kind of social sentiment. In a sense, that transition you made it pretty hard to distinguish humanism from another social sentiment. And of course, I guess we don't know. I guess what you're saying is there's not really good examples of neo-humanism yet, or very few. But maybe you could. Yeah, maybe you could find some. Mm-hmm. Some of the schools we have trying to teach that. What are we trying to teach children? Maybe put in some of those. So, because the examples kind of made it more real. You had nice examples of geo-sentiment and
also to add
sentiment.
Examples on neo-humanism.
Yeah, and examples of what's humanism.
Okay.
I felt like, because the examples really make it clear. And then, getting back to Anshula's thing about being rational and logic, as I recall in other discourses, Baba talks about acting from instinct, then acting with rationality, but then acting with, vivek, in the sense of doing what's right, mm-hmm. and not just rationalize, well, maybe I can get away with this, and it'll help me. And then the other piece I was wondering whether it could have fit in here is at least some reference then of what is right is what's most beneficial. But you had that in. But it really comes from Yam and Niyam, doesn't it?
Mm. Well, Arati mentioned about the benevolent. Oh, by the way, she also said that this psychic movement thing is in the book, is in the Neo-Humanist, in the Liberation of Intellect. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Otherwise, like I thought it was very good. I enjoyed it a lot as it kept me engaged the whole time. Which, sometimes my mind, when things are going slow, I'll start multitasking. I didn't,
Right.
so that's good. As far as the software goes, when I first got in, the Citrix has this large window of welcome to the webinar. It was completely covering the slides, and I kind of remember from webinars we do with the National Committee that the slides were always right there. So it took a little bit of time to find that. I don't know whether that's happened to other people or not. But the slide
which window was in front? Was it the? Was
it's
it
to
not?
go to webinar, connected to the webinar. Just the Citrix logo.
Was it
and all
not
that.
the browser?
No, I have the window right now. I can move it to cover the slides.
Oh.
And
that's
I don't know,
not
maybe
the browser.
It wasn't a browser window. It was a Citrix window.
Okay, all right.
I don't know. Maybe nobody else had that problem.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. Thanks. Great. I have Vishala back here. Just a moment. I will unmute you, Vishala. Okay.
Namaskar, Dana.
Namaskar.
Two quick things. One comment and one question.
Mm-hmm.
One is I'm wondering what it would be like if there was time, and it might not be because of the webinar's time, to ask people to think about themselves and reflect on their own sort of geo-social sentiment feelings, and if they could identify that and maybe an action they would think or something that they would want to work on and something that they would want to include or expand on, just to get them thinking about taking this into, and even if people were willing to give an example of something or type it in or share it somehow, to have that sort of flow to what happens after the webinar. So that's one thing. I don't know if there's time for that, but just a thought.
Well,
the other thing is a question, which is, how was it for you to do the webinar?
Okay. So I will, first, on the first point that you said, if there is a possibility to ask people to think about their own geo-sentiment or social sentiment and share that, is possible. The thing is, for that, it might be better like a course. Suppose we are going to meet 3 times.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so like this one, it's more like a theoretical, like a philosophical explanation. And then, so that's why nowadays I'm offering these like 3 classes or 4 classes on one.
Okay, good.
But I'm still not very developed in engaging so much the people.
Right.
I do engage a little bit, but I'm planning to develop a little bit more.
Okay.
So that the course really looks like we are all there in the same place and we kind of relate to each other.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's good. So what was the second one?
How was it for you to do this webinar for us? It's just personal for me. Like, how was it for you?
Okay, what I did from the beginning, I thought I will not think who is there as an individual. I will give it as if it's a general audience. It means even people who are not. My audience in mind was, it could be for people who are a little bit related to Ananda Marga, but I was not thinking, oh, these are all people who already know the topic and everything. So I started from that. And so I did have difficulty in finding, like Raghavira said about the examples on geosentiment. I didn't, because I just came from traveling and like this, so I had not very much time to prepare. So I did feel that was one lacuna. I didn't have the good examples on the geosentiment that I could quote, like put something happening currently in the world, and this is an example of geosentiment. And even on the pure humanism also needs a little bit more research. Maybe the world is a little bit more dominated by this mixture of geo and social sentiment, and social sentiment being quite. So it's easier to find. Most headlines are related to some social sentiment and a little bit touching the geo sentiment, but pure geo sentiment is a little bit more difficult. And then to find the real examples of humanism, it's also a little bit more difficult. Yeah, but means I've been giving many webinars, and I've been developing a little bit like the more interactive and reducing the amount of information that I give. And also I experienced with different slides. Some slides are a mixture of handwriting and graphics. Some are just handwriting, and some are just like PowerPoint. And I get feedback that usually when something is handwritten, it could be even the mixture of graphic and handwritten is good. So this one I opted for the handwritten everything, also because I had previously prepared a handwritten presentation, so I used that one. But anyway, I felt how to say good, and it was flowing well. I had some difficulty to get the questions from you,
Right.
because during the presentation nobody wrote anything, and also when we ended, I there was a pause, means that the questions took some time for the questions to come.
Okay.
So the first question that there was like a comment, I basically came up with it. But what I do in other webinars, I usually prepare 2 or 3 questions myself, that if there is a gap in the people coming up with the questions, I put those questions that I already prepared, and that gets the thing rolling. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for letting us know a little bit about your process. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay, so I have other people here. I don't know the order that it came, but I have Arati. Arati, I'm going to unmute you. Okay, there you go. But you are self-muted, it seems, so you have to. Yes. Okay, now you can go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. You had asked earlier about, I think you said, what kind of audience would this be the most useful for?
Right.
And so, first of all, I think it would be extraordinarily useful for Margis, because if you're going around using the word neo-humanism, you should know really what Baba said about it in his book, The Liberation of Intellect, and I feel like you do a really excellent job of covering most of the book. You didn't talk about pseudoculture, but that's almost like a separate topic that he puts in here. So I think it would be fantastic for Margis. The other audience I thought would be really good, I was thinking of like high school students, because high school students have this kind of natural idealism that's growing in them, and they don't have kind of the language and to put to it, so they can kind of be able to sort of cognitively understand what they're sort of emotionally already understanding, because they kind of have this, Baba says at that age, this natural kind of idealism grows in them. So I think it would be an incredible sort of webinar for them. And then for in between, for like the public, I like it, but I like what Vishala said, and I think you said you would also do it in like more than one session. I think for people more in college or adults, they want to know, okay, how am I going to apply this to my life? How is this going to help me in my life, and how can I make this part? So I think having that, like you said, part of a bigger, probably you would be teaching them also yoga and meditation. I mean, it's like a whole self-help thing you would be doing in that context. Then maybe there would be discussion. Also, like with high school students, you know, examples of geo-sentiment, for example, you would put it to them. I mean, they would probably just, you know, come up with more than you could even come up with.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
they're just, their minds are just so with it, you know. So so you could do a lot of that, having the audience provide those examples. So I'm seeing those three different kinds of groups, kind of students, older students, you know, adults, and then, you know, Margies who are using this vocabulary, that they should really know more deeply how Baba constructed it. Anyway, that's my feedback on that question.
Great. Thanks, Arati. Yeah.
Okay.
And I still have Anchala here again. Anchala, you can self-unmute because I already have you unmuted here.
I'm not really sure why, but I didn't have another comment.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why you saw me.
Oh, because your hand was still up. You can click again on the button of the hand and it will go down.
Oh, I see.
And
okay.
you also clicked. Yeah, okay. So now all hands are down. So anybody else, anything, any comment, any... just to give you an kind of the scope of this kind of program. This kind of program online like this, we can reach thousands of people if we have the good a good marketing way. You know, like I'm doing an experiment in Italy, and I have a good person doing marketing there, and he uses Facebook. And I already did webinars where we got more than 1,000 people registered. So there is kind of, how to say, the scope of this is really good, you know. And if we, even as a master unit, if we all put effort to do this, like to have more webinars, because my idea was that suppose somebody will attend a webinar like this or see a video, and then in the end we put 4 courses and this and that, contact master unit, like that. So we'll be bringing first we are bringing like people virtually to the master unit, and then we can be able to bring them physically. Yeah. Okay, I don't know if anybody wants to raise their hands and say something. Otherwise, I think we can finish for today. Okay, I have Arati and I have Vishala. Arati, you go ahead, Arati.
Okay, so we don't have very many of us here, but it would be good if we talked about when we're going to meet next.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, you know, I was hoping that more people from the committee would be on this call, but they're not. So.
Well, we have you and Scott, we have Vivek, we have Raghuveer and Anchala, and we have Vishala. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, is it possible to unmute all of us and we have a discussion, or is that going to be too much?
I can unmute everybody, and then let me see. Well, unmute everybody. Hold on. Okay. I'm gonna unmute one by one. That's, I think, what I have to do. Now the point is, when everybody's unmuted together, the system has some difficulties. So you can self-control. So when you want to speak, you unmute on the spot and then you mute again. So in that way, the thing will go well. But I still have Vishala that was raising hands. So let's Vishala.
No, that's all right. Go ahead. That's all right.
Okay. So I'm going to put all hands down here. I put, okay. So now everybody can speak. You just have to unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, well, this May 3rd date came up, and I don't know if everybody saw the discussion started. Nirmal was saying he didn't think that was a good date, but Vivek said, well, we could do our our mentoring group on Saturday and do a kirtan on Sunday. So I wondered if there was any more thought about that.
I don't know if you saw, this is Angela, can you hear me?
Yes.
No? Yeah, I put up one more email this morning, and what it said was that I'm fine with that idea, but only if Nirmal and if it fits into the flow of whatever Nirmal and Dada had imagined. So I don't want to present the program if they had wanted like an entire weekend event. So, you know, I don't want to break into that if that's what was desired.
Okay, I didn't see that email, sorry.
You had the idea that you need one afternoon, Angela? How long you need?
Well, it was going to be an all-day presentation.
I see.
Well, where did this idea come from for Baba's birthday celebration at the Master Union? As a board member, it was never brought up to the board. It was just new that came out of the blue.
Yes, I had some talk with Nirmal about it, but we didn't really finalize. And the idea was that before we used to do in New York, like 24 hours, 36 hours, like 48 hours, I think we did once, even more. So we were thinking, okay, so why don't we do something Baba's birthday in the master unit? We could do like 6 hours or 12 hours kirtan or something like that. So that's why when the discussion happened, he put that point. Yeah. So the idea is.
Do we really have enough people? Okay.
Yeah,
do we really have enough people to do such a long kirtan?
From other places, from New York, from Northampton, and from all the area to come for a kirtan. And I think it might be attractive. And also that time we could even do like an opening on the new property. Maybe it will be a little bit more operational. So it would be a good occasion to combine these two things. But we could still have the program, Angela's program. The only thing is, if more people come, if they can also participate in that program, if it would be like an open to all, so it could be part of the program and then we'll do the kirtan, something like that.
No, Scott.
This becomes in some ways a board issue, so it's a little bit complicated whether we're really ready to have a program that big. And you know, I don't know if this is the place to go into that.
Okay.
But it's pretty complicated, I think, to decide if we even could have an event like that and how it would be possible. My program, in terms of my program, I don't know that it's appropriate to present it to a larger group. I could modify parts of it and present it, but I also need a space to do that, and it involves doing some things that require the amount of space that doing yoga requires, so we'll be pretty tight inside the living room area just with the group that we already have.
Well, should we think about a different weekend then?
I don't think we should try to do two things because I think it's going to be too much for people. I'm wondering though, I'm thinking days and stuff because it seems to me it would be no problem if it was just a morning thing, and then you start the kirtan, and then if people want to stay over or go to bed and breakfast or go home. I don't know if you do the Anshula's program on Saturday and then do the kirtan on Sunday, but does that give enough time to do the kirtan to people get there? To maybe some people could come the night before, or people coming from Albany, people could stay at people's houses in Albany and come in, you know. So, and then people could get back. I mean, I don't think you're going to have enough people to do a 24-hour kirtan.
Well, because there's no place to sleep them is the problem.
Right. So if you're going to do like a 6-hour kirtan on Sunday, you could do Anshula's program on Saturday and then do a 10 to 4 kirtan on Sunday. And then the people that are there for the program would already be doing it, and everybody else, or 9 to 3, and then everybody else could come in for that time.
You're thinking, Vishala, they could just drive there for the day and then go home.
Well, you can do that from New Haven. You can do that from Northampton. You can do that from Albany. So, you know, and there may be people that come in and stay at people's houses in Albany, or Ananta's house, or Nirmal's house, or what's his name's house, who's a little father in the Hudson Valley. It's not Srinivasa's, what's his, Sukadeva's house. And then on Saturday, and then they all come up for the kirtan on Sunday, you know.
Right. Yeah, could be.
I don't think it's good to do the kirtan.
Were you thinking two nights people would stay somewhere?
Well, we didn't talk much about it. We just came up with the idea, but we didn't talk times and logistics.
I think it would be really nice to have a group of people. I think the Mass Unit needs kirtan. I personally think, you know, when they did that Akhanda Kirtan in Asheville, someone came and after the Akhanda Kirtan donated $30,000 to start a school there.
Yeah.
You know, it was like wild.
Yeah.
So I think it would be, personally, I think you'd talk to Nirmal and you should talk to the board. But I think if you did Anshula's program on Saturday and did a 6-hour Akhanda Kirtan on Sunday, and everyone could come in and stay at friends' houses or come up for the day on Sunday, I think that would work fine.
Yeah, that's a good idea, I think.
Yeah, and if some people can come Saturday night, I mean, Anshula's program is not in the evening.
Right.
You could have a Kirtan or something in the evening before get the ball going.
Yeah, it could be. Yes. Okay. So we could do it in that way.
Right.
So
I don't know if you want to finalize now or if you want to have a more...
Right.
Well, we can't really finalize because you have to talk to Nirmal on the board.
Nirmal on the board. Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe that's a proposal.
Yeah, according to my calendar, the board meets this Wednesday. So that would, you know, we could review the idea and get back to the program committee within a week, I think. Is that right, Anshula? Anshula, you still there?
Yeah.
Aren't we meeting on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I think we are. Yep.
Okay, so let the board discuss it.
I have a question.
Back.
When you're talking about all these people coming, I mean, realistically, how many people would you expect would be there at a peak time?
I don't know.
Maybe 30?
Could we all fit inside the house? Can you have 30 people? Well, I guess not everyone would be doing kirtan at that same time.
You're right.
Well, everybody would want to sit down for the meditation part.
We thought also that if it is a warm day, we could, and depend on the status of the whole house on that period also. We might even use the barn, even if it's not finished. We can put a big carpet and.
Is that legal? Are we allowed to, or is it off limits, or what?
Right. I don't know about the legality.
I think that would be important because
it's legal to use it. It's legal to use the barn. We just can't do any work on it until we have a building permit. But it's legal.
Oh, okay, but there's nothing that says it's an abandoned building and you can't go near it. There's nothing like that.
Oh no.
Structurally, it's fine.
Okay.
Is there a certificate of occupancy or whatever is necessary to use it?
I don't know.
For
We
a
have
farm?
the
I mean,
certificate of occupancy.
it's like a garage. You can go into your garage and you don't have it's, but you can't live in it because you don't have an occupancy.
Yeah, but you have 30 people. I mean, you can have a party in your garage, I guess, but you're not going to be able to have people put up tents and stay. You know, that's going to put up some
No,
red
no,
flags.
people would have to stay away off. People would have to know. That's why I think if it's a day thing, I mean, what you're going to end up getting is us who's going to stay there,
Right.
and you're going to hopefully get like the, Dharmapriya Mahesh Sukadeva crowd who all get together anyways, 3 or 4 times a year for them to come in for the day. I think that's the audience of people we want to come in.
Yeah, I think we will not have maybe 30 people. Maybe we would have 20.
Right.
Yeah.
Will the Didis do something in New York and they'll take care of the New York people?
If they might do something like an Akanda Kirtan there also. But the New York people, if they come, it will be only 3 or 4.
Right.
Maximum.
So they'll probably do, that's what I'm saying. They'll probably do something down there and not travel all the way up here.
Because they usually don't come up. Only those who have cars, which is only maybe 1 or 2.
So I think if we're going to do this for a kind of kirtan, we'd have to have people that would let people know ahead of time so we see what group we're talking about.
Right.
So
Right.
that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, we need.
It sounds like a board issue anyway.
Right.
I think doing kirtan at the Mass Union is very important, though, my personal opinion.
I completely agree with that. I've been thinking that for a really long time, that there should be every opportunity to do a lot of kirtan there. I think that microbiome really is not needed.
Yeah.
With all this drama that keeps going on and on and on and on.
I mean, we may analyze things also from a perspective like that, microvita, that if you are bringing new ideas to a certain place, there is some resistance from not only in a kind of a physical aspect, but also in the mental aspect, So kirtan is important for that.
Yeah. Very important.
Like we see, now we hear about this talk about selling the New York Jagrati. So the way I see it in a different perspectives like this, when I came to New York, I felt that atmosphere was very difficult. So in the beginning, we were looking for a place to buy and move. So we wanted to buy a place and put some extra money and maybe have a better place. After looking around and like this and seeing the difficulties in doing that, so we decided, okay, let's develop this place. So originally what I thought was, we just have this little apartment and we are surrounded by all these tamasic people. Even in our house we have the tamasic vibration, so at least our house should be sattvic. So that's when we started taking out all the tenants. So when we manage, now we have our house at least is sattvic, and then the environment around, there were these people selling drugs in the area. So we put the lights, we make the garden nice, and like this, they eventually moved out. So we thought, okay, now we managed to make the whole area, the whole place, at least the whole house is sattvic. But now they are going to sell it, so the whole place is going to become tamasic again. So it's not easy to change an environment, There is always a backlash. Okay. Maybe we should end now?
Sounds that way.
All right.
Sounds like we're tentatively for May 3rd, and the board is going to talk about that.
Right. So Vivek, you'll report back to the mentoring group, right? Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
then.
All right. Thank you, Dada, once
Thank you,
again.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.